Welcome to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.net. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. So as you listen to the show, obviously it's all about change. And I hope my guests and I share some ideas and tips that you can implement and create action from as it relates to change that's happening in your life. And we're all kind of in different places. So hopefully my guests and I help you navigate that change with a little bit more ease and grace. Hopefully, if you're loving the show, which I hope you are, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you can, rate and review, always so appreciated as well. So my motivational quote today is by the amazing, beautiful, just iconic Betty White. And I want to be her when I grow up. So Betty says, "Don't try to be young, just open your mind. Stay interested in stuff. There are so many things I won't live long enough to find out about, but I'm still curious about them." You know, people who are already saying, "I'm going to be 30. Oh, what am I going to do?" Well, use that decade. Use them all. Now, what does retirement and aging perhaps mean to you? Is it the end of your career? Does it mean playing golf every day, maybe sitting on a beach for you? Or does it mean starting your own business, sharing the wealth of your knowledge that you've amassed over, your lifetime? And I believe there are so many answers to that question for everybody that's listening. So which one is right for you? Well, my amazing guest and amazing friend today is Dr. Gillian Lockitch. And Gillian retired and has had 3 careers since. Go get them. She feels that truth is that when we stop learning and growing, we actually start to decline. Now, Gillian is an author, international speaker, researcher, and entrepreneur, and she's enjoyed a 25-year career as a medical professional and dual certified specialist in pediatrics and medical biochemistry. After experiencing a series of catastrophic life events, culminating in life-saving emergency spinal surgery, she began exploring the integration of epigenetic science, such a cool topic, with a myriad of ancient and non-traditional wellness systems to develop a roadmap for healthy aging, extending health span rather than just lifespan. She also became an entrepreneur, building a business in health and aging youthfully. Her book, Growing Older, Living Younger, The Science of Aging Gracefully and the Art of Retiring Comfortably, is the basic for the Growing Older, Living Younger project, which we're going to talk about today, aiming to help others find their personal roadmap to aging youthfully. So there's so much more to say about Gillian. She's amazing, and the depth of her knowledge is extraordinary. Please help me welcome my wonderful friend Gillian to the show. So Gillian, thanks for being on.
Oh, Connie, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, every time, I know you now because we've been working together and we're in masterminds. Well, she's in Canada, I'm in New Jersey, but we're in the same circle of networking. And the depth of your knowledge, Gillian, on calls, like you'll say something and I always pause and think, oh my God, that was also brilliant. Like another brilliant piece of advice from Dr. Jill, right? So now you've had that 25-year career as a medical specialist. What were your research areas and did that influence what you're doing now post-retirement?
Sure. Well, basically the key areas that I was working in was in human biochemistry. So my research projects were mainly to do with nutrition, with genetics. And then, of course, I was a director of the laboratories at the Children's and Women's Hospital. So things like quality control, quality assurance, and understanding the meaning of what a laboratory test actually is was another important component of the research that I did. In fact, one of the most fun projects that we undertook was to figure out what happened to the normal biochemistry during pregnancy. So, that when one has a laboratory test done, it's usually reported in terms of reference ranges. And so they'll say you're above or below the reference range. Well, there was very little information about how a number of these things changed in pregnancy. And so, in fact, the first book that I was the sort of primary author on was a book to define what the normal changes in biochemistry and hematology are during pregnancy. And that was one of my most exciting research projects.
And as a woman, what a cool perspective, because your body went through those transformations, when you had your kids. So what a cool project, and personal, it's kind of from a personal perspective.
Was.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. How has all of that research and that 25 years, really that depth of knowledge, how has that influenced you now post-retirement?
Well, one of the interesting things that sort of come out of my new reinterest in medicine, because I'd basically switched to becoming more focused on arts and culture in my second career. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I've realized is to sort of echo Betty White, the more you know, the more you realize what you don't know. And things have changed so much. When I first learned about genetics, which was as a medical student, it was all about single gene disorders and, how two blue-eyed parents couldn't have a brown-eyed child, right? So single gene kinds of things. And wow, in the last 10 years, even since I retired, the knowledge in genetics has just blown up. And it's impossible for anyone to really keep in touch and keep on top of everything.
And but that's technology, right? That's the internet. That's our ability to network globally. So you're tapping into other scientific researches literally at the drop of the hat, where you don't have to wait for a journal to come out. So I think information is just being shared at such a rapid rate that like you said, it's almost hard to keep up with all of the new nuances and the new information, especially in genetics. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Right. Well, it's not only just the sharing, it's the discovery. So, for example, when the human genome was mapped, we realized that only about 1% of the DNA actually coded for genes. And in fact, the other sort of 98 to 99% coded for a whole number of things that actually regulated the way genes express. And that's sort of the basis for why epigenetics has become so important now. And we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, and I know you just love talking. I know that is your passion, but you really are very good at teaching what that means and then how to kind of tap into that to control in your own personal life. Let's talk about the GOLI project, right? It's the Growing Older, Living Younger project. How did that come about? And this is important with the epigenetics, I think, as well, right?
Right, it is. So the genesis of this project actually began, as you referred to, when I had a series of catastrophic life events. So when I was, in fact, 65, so it was like a decade ago, I was widowed. I had downsized from our family home. I had retired from medicine to focus on writing and developing my lifestyles website, which is Review from the House. And I'd taken up ballroom dancing because I really planned carefully for that retirement. One of the things that I wanted to do was learn ballroom dancing at a high level. And I had a couple of years of really a lot of fun dance cruising around the world and writing travel blogs.
Cool.
For my blog. And then one night when I had returned from a dance cruise, I woke up at 3:00 in the morning, unable to move, in the most excruciating pain. And that kicked off 4 months of physical hell, actually, which I only learnt later that what had happened was that my low back pain, my chronic low back pain, had actually got worse because of what they call spinal stenosis, which is the bone of the spine sort of encroaching and pushing on the nerves, and it was pushing on my sciatic nerve. And so during that time, I tried everything. I looked at all sorts of alternate therapies. Nobody could help me, and it was a horrible time in my life. I've never been depressed. I've never really known clinical depression, but I became incredibly depressed, didn't want to talk to anybody, sat on my couch, had no energy. You know how it is, you eat for comfort. My weight ballooned up, and things were really sort of going downhill fast. And then what happened was I ended up with emergency back surgery. And after about a 7-hour operation, I sort of emerged from that, and I've got sort of metal in my back. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because the morning when I woke up, the physiotherapist came in. I had just recovered from a 7-hour surgery. The next morning, 7 o'clock, in comes this bright and breezy physio, and she says to me, Gillian, do you have any pain? And I kind of laughed, because I was so doped up on heavy duty painkillers, and it was, I said to her, it's the first time in years that I've had no back pain. I feel great. And she said, oh, well, if that's the case, you're getting out of bed right now. And I thought, wow, and she got me out of bed, and I was holding my IV stand, and we sort of shuffled around the ward. And I thought, this is amazing. Wow. Sorry, it's just a strange noise from going on outside. I don't know if you're hearing it.
That's okay. It's not distracting at all, Gillian. It's good.
Anyway, I got back into bed, and I suddenly thought about, maybe there was a possibility that I would be able to get back to dancing. And I realized at that time that I needed to change things, because the state that I'd got myself into, I was on a downhill trajectory. Yeah. I was going to develop all the aging associated diseases that really don't have to be associated with aging. And there's a lot of this we can prevent. And so my wonderful son had come up to be with me, and to basically look after me for the first week or so, because I got discharged home on the 3rd day after surgery.
Crazy.
And Michael said to me, Mom, I know you want to dance. We are going to absolutely get you rehabilitated. And on the day that I came home, he said, you can rest for a little bit, and then we're going to go for a walk. And my rehab started that day. We walked for about 5 minutes, came back in the elevator, and from then on with him, every day we added just a couple of minutes. I walked twice a day. So by the time he left after a week and my daughter came to look after me, I was walking for about 20 minutes twice a day.
It's great.
Then I started working, when the surgeon said it was okay, I started working with a personal trainer that I had worked with before, and undergoing some other kinds of sort of massage therapy, that type of a thing. But the most important thing that I realized was I had to absolutely change my mindset. I had to believe that not only would I walk pain-free, I would be able to dance, and I was going to do it by the end of the year. This happened in February.
I love it.
In fact, it's almost exactly 10 years since the surgery. And then I started looking into everything that I needed to change, and that sort of led me to the 7 pillars. So first of all, it was understanding my genetics. Then it was...
Wait, before you go into that, Gillian, you said so many great things on that little journey. So I just want everybody to stop for a second, right? Gillian, right, doctor, nutrition, health, genetics, so highly knowledgeable, right? And she fell into depression, damaging her back, and how easy it is for something bad to go wrong in all of our lives. And notice what Gillian said. After the surgery, she was like, wait a minute, I don't have any pain. And that the physiologist was like, get your butt out of bed. We're going to start rocking and rolling, right? But what a great pivot for you, that moment, literally, that you had that aha moment of, wait a minute, maybe this is possible. And that mindset, that shift in the mindset is so critical. And then the other thing you said that I love is that your kids rallied around you and said, yeah, you're going to dance again, man. This is going to happen for you, Mom, right? And these are the little things that we can do to help support you on that journey. So everybody, crap happens to everybody, right, Gillian? We all know that,
Absolutely.
Right? Nobody has the perfect life. Here, a doctor and this prestigious industry, and yeah, crap happened to you as well, life-changing things. And then your mindset had to change, and your family support. And I think there are two critical things that we forget about. You can control your mindset. It's hard to do when you're in a bad place. So having those wonderful people, in your case, the children, to help rally behind you. I just want everybody to hear that. You can't do it alone. It's just, that's not how humans are wired. And we need that wonderful support and love from those that really understand us and know what we're all about. So I just wanted to comment on that, because there was this arc of transformation in that. And I know you talk about it because it's your life, and it's like, yeah, been there, done that. But people can so learn from just that one little story. So thank you for sharing that.
Right.
Now,
Connie, sorry, there's
that's
two
okay.
points that I want to make in relation to that. So when I've talked about the first one, if I've forgotten, just tell me there's something else I wanted to say. So the first is, yes, you're absolutely right. I am so blessed to have three wonderful children, who are all adults now.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of the legacy of my wonderful marriage to Bob, that we have a very close-knit, supportive, wonderful family. So Michael came up after the surgery, so did Amanda, and Keith, my other son, and the boys are both in the US, had come up previous to that to basically reorganize my whole apartment. So because I couldn't bend, I couldn't reach. So he set things up that everything was sort of relatively easily within reach for me. So, I'm so grateful to all three of them for their ongoing love and support.
Yeah. And
so that was the one point.
We need it, yeah.
The second point, and I remembered that there were two. The second point that I want to make is, the day that I woke up with pain, I didn't know what to do, and I thought there's no point in phoning my children. Amanda was in Toronto, the boys were in the US. All I would do is upset them. So I did manage to get through to the family doctor like 5 hours later, and his basic advice at that stage was, just rest in bed kind of thing and take analgesics. I mean, he's right. There really wasn't anything else to suggest at that stage. But it never occurred to me to call on any of my new friends. And the story of what happened is actually very illustrative, in that I had been planning to meet one of my a group of friends. I think it was Dancing with the Stars or one of those things was on, and we normally gathered in our community rec room to watch this, and I didn't come. And the next morning, I got a phone call from one of my friends saying, what's wrong? Where were you? How come you didn't arrive? And I told her what had happened. And here in this community where, we were all relative strangers, over the next week or two, a group of friends came visiting every day. They brought me food. They made me eat. And I realized at that stage that no matter what kind of an image we want to show the world that we're proud and independent and, strong, but you have to be able to reach out for help when you need it, and you have to be able to accept it with grace and with humility. And that was a really powerful lesson that that I learned as a result of this.
Which is fascinating, because as a doctor, you would think that that ability to say, I need help, that would have been part of that lesson. But I guess being a doctor, it was, I should have all the answers. It's almost the flip side of that. Fascinating, fascinating how the human brain works. So now go back. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I really wanted to point those out, because there's such inspiring moments in your life from tragedy, how we can really transform, and we have the control to do that. So thank you for sharing that. Next question is, I know because I've been in your company enough, but you talk about the 7 pillars, and I think they're so important. Can you please share that? Just because I think there's a wealth of information in that for my listeners as well.
Right, and these 7 pillars basically came from the 7 aspects of my life that I realized I had to address in order to change my aging trajectory. So the first we've sort of briefly discussed, and that, you start off with your genetic blueprint that you inherit from your parents, and some of the things we are powerless to change, but there are a number of factors that we can change, and that we can use that to change the way we age. So pillar 1 is your genetic blueprint and the power of epigenetics to modify it. Pillar 2, I have a funny title for it. It's mindset, mindfulness, and mind keep. And it basically refers to everything to do with our thoughts. So, the brain is an organic structure. And so when we talk about various things like dementia or whatever, it can happen from physical changes in the brain itself. On the other hand, if you think about mind, what does mind mean? It's completely abstract. It's a composition or a complex of cognition and memory and all those sort of abstract things that work through the brain, but they don't reside anywhere. Although I guess memories actually do physically reside in places. So mindfulness, to me, is the ability to be present all the time, and we can sort of talk more about that. And then the third aspect of that second pillar for me is, I call it mind keep, and that is, what do we do to preserve our cognitive abilities, our memory, our position in space, all of that kind of thing. So that's pillar 2. Pillar 3 was one of the most important ones that I worked on and found a lot of pitfalls, went wrong, and then finally came to figure out what was right for my body, and that is nutrition. And for me, I think of food as basically providing, 2 important resources for our body. Number 1, it provides fuel, and number 2, it provides the building blocks that go to make us what we are. And so I although my medical instincts told me what I was doing was wrong for the longest time, I tried to follow what the nutritional recommendations were, low fat, eat 3 meals a day and 3 snacks, all of these things that I realized was so wrong. And it was only when I really tuned back into what I knew about physiology and metabolism that I set myself on the right track, lost all the weight, became energetic and vibrant and all of that kind of thing. So the third pillar is nutrition. The fourth one is to do with physicality, your body composition, how it changes with age, how you move, your posture, and everything related to that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5, I have a different name for it. I call it presence. And that is the composite of everything that you present to the world. So it's how you move, your posture, but it also is reflected on your face. And it's really interesting because one of the areas that I'm in, as you know, is I work in anti-aging and health and beauty. And people sort of say to me, I don't really care about my face. I'm whatever it is, and I'm getting older, and, so I got wrinkles and all of that kind of thing. And to me, it goes far beyond that, because our skin is our outer defense for the world, and we want our skin to be healthy. And all the evidence that happens with aging is indicating that our skin is not healthy. We're obviously not producing the collagen and the elastin to keep us from getting wrinkles. So I think that's a very important pillar as well, is how we address our outward appearance as much as how we address our inward appearance.
Agree.
And it's interesting, the next pillar is all about connection and networking and community. And what's interesting is I just saw two birds flying past my window, and I was just thinking, that's it. It's all about connection. So there's a lot of evidence that suggests that loneliness is almost as bad an influence on our aging and our aging-associated diseases as things like smoking. So that pillar is a very important one for me. And I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but almost 4 years ago, there were a number of censuses, whatever, done around the world that showed that single-family homes had become the most common type of dwelling. In other words, there were more people living alone than had ever been before. And this isn't a phenomenon that's exclusive to North America. It was shown throughout Europe, Japan, etc. So the question becomes, can you be alone and not lonely? And we'll talk a little bit later about, what the particular concerns are that people have about aging that I discovered in my market research. But so that's pillar 6. And then the final pillar for me is, it's all based on the fact that if you don't keep growing, you go into a decline. And so I call it choose your challenge.
Yeah.
And that challenge can be anything. It can be learning a new language. It can be volunteering. It can be traveling somewhere that you've never traveled before. And for me, the challenge that I chose was at 70, starting a business and becoming an entrepreneur that I'd never done before.
Yeah.
So that sort of summarizes the 7 pillars. And in my book, I describe my journey through each one of those aspects and the mistakes that I made and what I learned. It's not a how-to book, and it's not a scientific tome, because that's how the book started. When I started trying to write about what I did, because people kept saying to me, how did you do it? What did you do? And I, ended up with like 900 pages of brilliant science. And, it was like, who's going to read that? No one. And that was when my very wise daughter said to me, Mom, just tell your story and the science will flow.
And it's true. I love Amanda. She did the beautiful, and I think you have that video on your website. Right? Did Amanda put that video?
Yes.
The document. It's fabulous.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's on my website. It's on her YouTube channel, and
it's fabulous.
You can put the link.
It
was really sweet.
Yeah, she's amazing. But the funny thing is, everything you just said, and getting to know you since last year, again, we're in a group together, and Gillian is always willing immediately to share if someone has an ailment or, we're not sure what to eat. Like, Gillian's like, oh, here's a good resource for you. She's like the research queen of try this, try that. And I think once a doctor, always a doctor, right? You always come from this place of sharing and genuineness. So, so a couple of things I want to comment on. The organ, right? Our skin is our biggest organ. And it's so funny because so many people say, well, that's just me and that's how I'm aging. And, my mother was very wrinkly or whatever. And my response, Gillian, I know you've heard me say this, is I'm fighting this sucker every step of the way, right? Exactly. If there's something, and hey, listen, and Gillian and I are not vain. I don't think that's where we're coming from, but I still, and you, how old are you now? 70?
I just turned 75. I was going to go on a ballroom dance cruise and do a dance competition.
Thanks COVID, right?
Thanks COVID.
Yes, but 75 years old, right? So you, like Betty White, she's 99, I think, this year. She's remarkable. Or she just turned 99. You can fight that aging process. And when I say fight, it's really not fighting. It's taking care of yourself, taking care of your skin, taking care of your nutrition, taking care of your mind. All of those 7 pillars we have absolute control over. So it's for us to say, well, my mom, that happened with my mom, or, oh, that's my dad's family. I get that from. You really have learned through your research that we can change our epigenetics and get in there, and by addressing those 7 pillars, that we really can take more control. We're almost out of time, but I have one more really important question, because I have both male and female listeners, and you talked about the loneliness component and the eating component, and as a woman, the changes, and men too, I see it with my husband, that we just naturally go through because we are aging, right? We're not 20 years old anymore. What are people that you did so much research and you speak to so many people, what are people concerned about as they approach retirement, or just that general conversation around aging? What are you finding, and is it different for men and women?
Well, it is. It's a very interesting question, because I've done quite a lot of market research, and I found that there were a lot of commonalities, but the key difference was women were particularly concerned about the physical body composition, putting on weight, and finding it very, very difficult to deal with it. The fascinating thing for me was when I talked to men about what their concerns were, most of them, their primary concern was being in pain and being alone, and the fact that they didn't have the kind of supportive network that women tend to have. And I just do have to make one point, Connie. I am retired from medicine, and so I've given up my certification, and I don't diagnose, treat, or prescribe. What I believe is helping people to understand how they can make their own bodies work for them.
Yeah, and another thing I do want to I found that fascinating, that the men and women, right? We really are, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We do think differently. I mean, that's just the reality. And the thing that I found fascinating about what you just said is we think in business, men have the deeper network. And yet, when they get into retirement, it's the reverse, that men feel that they're more isolated than women are. So just kind of fascinating, the way the psyche works for a man versus a woman. Right. And the other key thing I want everybody to truly hear is Gillian started being an entrepreneur at the age of 70. So, I think we retired, Gillian, and we think, my intro, are you going to play golf or sit on the beach all day? And my kids laugh at me and they say, oh, you're never going to retire. I would like to be able to slow down at some point, right? I'm 59. So at some point I'd like to slow down and not work at the pace and capacity that I'm doing now. But I don't think I could ever retire, because I have so much knowledge that I feel I want to share, and that people, at least still, are interested in learning from me, that if I can help someone, I'm going to continue to do that. I'm not just going to say, well, it's time for me to retire. That to me is just your own limiting beliefs. And so I am, I'm inspired by you. I love hanging out with you. I love when we're in group discussions together, because Gillian always seems to share some nugget of information that I know, me personally, I'm able to take back into my own life and think, well, I'll try that, or let me look into that more. Or I will ask, I'm not afraid to ask Gillian a million questions either. So thank you so much for all those answers. We are out of time. Guys, you need to talk to Gillian. She's, again, brilliant, and her book is brilliant, and you're launching a podcast soon. We're not there yet, but it's coming. So you'll really be able to hear some beautiful insight, and you hear how well versed and how beautifully how Gillian articulates these more difficult concepts because of her background and research. And I always find, Gillian, that you deliver it so that I'm like, oh, I totally understood that. And not only did I understand it, I can apply it. So again, I'm really looking forward to your podcast coming out, and we'll keep you posted on that, guys. Email Gillian, go to askdrjill@gmail.com. Gillian uses G for her name, so it's Ask Dr. Dr. Jill, Gill, @gmail.com. Also, go to the website, which is askdrjill.com. Again, doctor is Dr. Jill, Gill. I will post that in the show notes. And one last thing, Gillian is just lovely. She's offering to all my listeners a free copy of her book. They have to pay shipping, right? Or
right.
Yes. It's GillianLockitch.com. So GillianLockitch.com, and you could get the free copy of her book as well. Tremendous wealth of information. You talk about the 7 pillars, right, through the book as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. And stay tuned, because her podcast is going to be the Growing Older, Living Younger podcast, right? We're still calling it that, right. Gillian? Yep. And we call it in the group, the Goalie Project, GOLY, Growing Older, Living Younger. So stay tuned. Gillian has a lot more cool things that she's bringing to the world. I'm honored to have you on my show, and I'm honored to share you with my listeners. I just feel, again, that you get us, you get people, and information that you share, I think, is just really useful. So thank you so much for being on, Gillian. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Connie, and thank you for being a friend and also a wonderful resource for me as I'm in my new business ventures.
Yes, I love it. I love helping. That's where I come from. Right. So, and you guys, if you want more information from me, just go to my website, easiest place. Everything is there. Whitman Assoc, so it's ASSOC.com. Whitman, WHITMAN, WhitmanAssoc.com. Ton of free resources. My book is there. My master classes are there. The podcast is housed there. So anything you need to know about me, trust me, go to the website, you find it. Gillian, thank you again, just for such great information. And I hope people start to look at those 7 pillars. And I think change happens by picking maybe one and peeling back the onion to see how can I progress, and hopefully your book is a great resource for that. So thank you again. And everyone, thank you for joining me weekly as we question, build, and discover together that, change and growing older, we really can embrace it, and we can do it with grace and ease, and we could come out the other side just, I feel, smarter, better, and we help those that are in our orbit as well. So thank you always for joining me, and I always hope that you find value and take away tips and tools from my guests and myself that you can apply immediately. You know me, it's all about action and getting that result. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. Thank you all. I really wish you a wonderful week, an inspired week, where you start to just still your mind enough to pick that one little thing that you can focus on to create the change in your life that you're seeking. And change truly is easier than we often think. You just have to take one little step forward. Thanks, everybody, and thank you, Jill, for being on.